Hello and welcome to the first video of my personal gaming recap 2025. I hope you had a fantastic year filled with small and big personal success stories, and depending on when you're watching this, have or had a good time with your family and loved ones. In today's video, I want to take a look and tell you about all the games that left my backlog this year, and in the next video we'll talk about my favorite games of 2025. So, the first game that left my backlog was one that I started around the same time a year ago, and instantly made me a fan of the series. The game I'm talking about is Yakuza 0, the prequel telling us the backstory of the events that led to the Yakuza series set in the 1980s in Japan. You play as a young Kazuma Kiryu and Goro Majima that get involved in a plot revolving around the ownership of a plot of land that has the potential to make the organization that gets their hand on it first incredibly rich. Gameplay is divided into 3D brawler sections and a huge amount of crazy minigames and side content, like managing a cabaret club. Because this game really got me hooked on the series, the next games I finished were Yakuza Kiwami and Kiwami 2. That, besides playing several decades later, are pretty much more of the fantastic crazy Japanese same. So I will definitely come back to continue my Yakuza journey with the third game soon. Following my Yakuza addiction, I went to explore the Wild West in Red Dead Redemption 1. A game that might not have aged gracefully in terms of graphics, but the gameplay, characters and atmosphere are still top notch. With, for the time, huge amounts of different weapons and an engaging plot around the protagonist's former gang of outlaws, and in combination with lots and lots of cinematic shootouts and action sequences, the original Red Dead Redemption makes for a fantastic experience. So I'm definitely glad I finally decided to experience this masterpiece 15 years after its release, and I really hope we will see another title in the future. But with how Rockstar releases their games lately, we will probably have to wait until at least the 2040s for that to happen. Anyway, next up we have a game that was on my list from the moment I finished 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which was the game Vanillaware developed before making Unicorn Overlord. That, despite the Vanillaware typical hand-drawn aesthetic, doesn't really have anything in common with 13 Sentinels. Because instead of commanding teenagers piloting huge mechas in a dystopian future, you control several parties consisting of over 60 unique recruitable characters, in real-time strategy battles in a more classic fantasy setting, where you have to defeat other units while defending your own base and conquer the opponent's bases. Who wins is determined through a rock-paper-scissors principle, so adjusting your units is essential to overcome the game's challenges. I actually enjoyed my time with the game so much I ended up getting the Platinum Trophy in the end. So if you're into strategy RPGs and fantasy settings, you can't go wrong with picking up Unicorn Overlord. The next game that left my backlog this year is Death Stranding, a game from the mind of the famous feat enjoyer Hideo Kojima. And this is a difficult one to describe, as it is not only following a unique, fantastic yet confusing plot in a post-apocalyptic United States, the gameplay mix of stealth action with survival horror elements in a delivery service simulator hasn't really been done before. But don't let all of this scare you away from giving this game a shot, because you're definitely missing out on one of the most unique experiences in recent years. And I'm definitely looking forward to playing the sequel in the future. Now it's time for another big RPG, the second game in the Trades of Cold Steel series, that continues the story of Rean Schwarzer and his classmates. The once again smooth turn-based battles got expanded by mech battles in the so-called Ashen Knight Valamar that got teased at the end of the first game. And despite the still in my opinion not so good looking character models and a painfully slow beginning, the world building, gameplay and plot once again got me hooked. And right now, I'm around 2/3 of the way through my playthrough of Trails Through Daybreak, and I'm loving every second of it. So I'm definitely glad I gave this franchise a chance. After completing massive RPGs, I often like to play some smaller titles, and this time was no exception. The first of these was Singularity, a game that puts you in the shoes of a United States soldier on the fictional island Katorga 12 in an alternate history Soviet Union. The game plays a lot with time travel, with the story regularly switching between events in the past and the current day. The gameplay seems pretty basic on the surface, but the enemy variety that mixes mutants with Russian soldiers, and my favorite thing, the creative weapons like a sniper that lets you control its bullet after firing, or the glove that lets you control time and space itself, really makes Singularity an underrated gem. But the by far biggest gem I caught up on has been Signalis, a survival horror indie game developed by the two-person studio Rose Engine Games located in the German city of Hamburg. You play as Elster, a humanoid replica unit looking for a partner, a so-called Gestalt, inside a mining facility after crash landing on an ice planet. Throughout Elster's journey, you will have to fight mutated replicas in twin-stick shooter sections and solve several unique riddles to get deeper into the depths of the mining facility. The game's lore, retro-futuristic art style and awesome tense atmosphere made me fall in love with Signalis, and I highly recommend trying it for yourself. The last game on the list is probably my least favorite, because while Indika has some nice ideas, with the devil constantly trying to seduce the protagonist to commit sins, or by criticizing religion and especially Christianity, the game massively lacked in the gameplay department, and if the game was only a few hours longer, I wouldn't have made it to the credits, as the story wasn't enough to carry Indika much longer in my opinion. Anyway, if you watched until now, first of all, thank you for that. Feel free to tell me what games left your backlog this year. Maybe they find a place in my backlog instead. And if you're interested, aside from the 2 Kiwami games, for every game on this list you will find a full review on my channel. And if you liked what you saw, maybe consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you next time.